slides can be helpful because it's not that we see a lot of cranes, although I've seen either cranes or crane-like birds in the waterways near the San Francisco Bay, and sometimes in a drive up to Northern California in marshy areas, we may also see cranes. They tend to be rather large birds, and apparently this crane has some kind of affiliation with a moose or a deer, and is hanging out as usual up to its knees is the crane in water. The crane is happy to eat fish. Okay, we have a bird expert here. Egrets are part of their family, slightly smaller. That's good to know. Similar form and features, is it, Alicia's? Yes. Oh, is this an egret or a crane you're seeing here? It's got a hard to tell. Okay. All right. So hopefully the egret and the crane share similar qualities. This looks like a sandhill crane. That's good to know. There's a Sandhill Road right off of the 280 and Sandhill Crane. Okay, so the crane is attributed with various mindfulness features that we can borrow. And going to slide number 3, we see that the crane focuses. Birds are amazing. Watching birds can be very, not just aesthetically pleasing because they're so beautiful and graceful, most of them, many of them, but also because they have powers, superpowers. Birds, for instance, who fly high in the sky, who are scavengers, can see what's on the ground miles away. And the crane's superpower is focus, because fish are fickle and they come and go very quickly. And you have to, in order to observe them, wait until they come near. So the crane is able to stand and wait and focus and keep his or her mind on the task at hand, which is to catch a fish. So this is one of the tenets of raising the mind to sattva, or the higher mode of nature, is to practice focus. There's focus, and I'm giving the antithesis as distraction. And the statement as a reminder that focus is nectar and distraction is torture. Patanjali Muni, in his book called the Yoga Sutras, goes into the details of the human mind and the states of mind one may achieve through practice of focus. And he describes how there's a hierarchy of states of mind, 5 in all. He gives these 5 categories. The lower 3 are non-productive. Have ever any of you noted that you're in a state of mind, or have you ever been in a state of mind where you noticed that you weren't being productive, or you sensed you weren't being productive, that your mind might be absorbed in randomness? That's an interesting, almost contradictory term, because we say absorbed, the mind's absorbed in something, it might indicate focus. But if I'm focusing on randomness, then I may not be completely focused. So the higher states of mind have to do with absorption in a specific subject, and also what's called samadhi, or one becomes one-minded with that object. And this is one of the practices of meditation, is to find the ultimate object of meditation, and learn how to bring the mind back to it. And Krishna talks about this in the Bhagavad Gita in the sixth chapter. For those of you who are familiar with the sixth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's about dhyan. Dhyan comes from the Sanskrit word dhi, which means to be able to focus the mind in one place and become absorbed in it. And to achieve that, Krishna says in the sixth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, one has to learn how to again and again bring the mind back to one pointedness. And just as when we practice some physical activity again and again, we get better at it. So similarly, the mind has neuroplasticity. It can also develop what might seem as a parallel to muscle memory. All of you have some skill that you've learned by diligent practice. For instance, maybe you know how to type. And in the beginning, learning typing required being very deliberate where you put your fingers until your fingers learned where all the specific keys are. It's an interesting configuration. QWERTYUIOP, and down on the keyboard, I'm sure it has some clear range of purpose, but just looking at it seems kind of random. And in the beginning, when we try to learn where to put our fingers, isn't it that you take some time to practice, and then if your finger goes off to the wrong key, you keep bringing it back until it gets used to it. And now, I dare say, many of you here have the ability to not even look at the keyboard. Your fingers just know where the keys are and you can go to it. So in the practice of focus, Krishna recommends focusing one's mind on, especially on transcendence. Now that can be achieved according to Patanjali Muni and the teachings of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita by finding an object or a sound that's beyond the three modalities. And then that comes in the form of mantra, the sound meditation, which means that the sound is what you meditate on, and you can just as easily bring your sense of hearing back to the mantra again and again. And the practice would be that as you chant the mantra, you listen, and then you ask yourself if you're aware that you're chanting, because it's possible to chant and not listen. Have you ever been in a conversation with somebody and they said something to you that was important and you said, uh-huh. And then if they ask you, what did I just say? You could honestly answer, I have no idea. And the reason for that is, thank you, Vicky, and everybody else who's smiling. The reason for that is because I wasn't actually listening. My mind was thinking of something else. And it's amazing how the human body can apparently do two things at once, but it can't absorb something when it's thinking of something else. If you try to memorize something, it's necessary, for instance, to think of it and make some neural connection, neurons that fire together, wire together, they say with memory, which requires that you look at a word or a sentence and you make some association with the words, with the letters, with the sentences, with something else. And then again and again by practice, then you remember it. But that takes some deliberate practice. And that's what practicing focus does for us. So in that state of focus, when one especially practices this by listening to something which is beyond the phenomena of the material world, then as Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, one will have a transcendent experience. And this is one of the essential aspects of yoga, or connecting with what's beyond the material world, the origin of everything, is to bring one's mind into focus on it. So is it difficult? Yeah, definitely. It's very hard. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna mentions this practice of focus and bringing the mind again and again, repeatedly back to the object of meditation, Arjuna lodges a little complaint. And he said, this is like trying to control the wind or trying to hold back a person who's unreasonable, who's lost his or her bearings and has become mad or crazy, and who's very determined. The mind is like that, he said, these three features. If you can imagine someone who came into your office right now or your room who was fickle, saying random things, moving around without any apparent purpose, and who was also very determined to stay there, and also was apparently had lost their senses, their sense of reason. It would be very difficult to deal with. So Krishna says, yeah, that's what we're dealing with the mind until we bring it under control. So the practice of focus can bring us to a state of nectar. And we notice that people get relief in some kind of focus. For instance, why do people like to watch football? For instance, like soccer, we call it in America. Well, what's their eye doing the whole time? It's just following the ball. You go back and forth, focus on one thing. There's the ball. Where's the ball now? Back here. Keep the mind on the ball. And when you focus in one place like that, then there's a little sense of peace that, okay, my mind's here. I'm meditating on the ball. Or in tennis, you just watch it go back and forth and back and forth. And after a while, it's like, okay, yeah, I can stay here. I can rest. So th- the mind, when focused, it can enter into these higher states and become more clear. So it's worth the practice. And those who practice bhakti yoga spend time every day in focusing the mind on the mantra, again and again, bringing it back. And that carries over into the rest of your life. When you learn how to focus the mind, then and you taste the nectar of focus, that your mind expands when it's focusing in one place and it becomes more capable. Then it becomes your mode of life. When you're working, you have the wherewithal because you've strengthened that muscle of focus to be able to see things clearly. So think of the crane next time. Just watch a crane. It sits there, or stands there rather, in the water and stays completely focused on the task. Doesn't move. It's perfectly still and waits till the object of its meditation, the fish, comes close enough for it to strike. So that's one of the admirable qualities of a crane. Has anybody here had any experience with focusing the mind that you can recount, where you had some experience of that, or perhaps the opposite, when you felt distracted? In other words, when we talk about meditation, we want an object that's attractive to meditate our minds upon. And when we're distracted, we're taken away from that attraction, then we might feel that we are floating and not connected to anything worthwhile. So, have you practiced focus, or do you wish to practice focus? Okay,
Gene,
go ahead, JM.
yeah, Gene said, when I croquet, I am focused
Okay,
on yeah,
crochet.
I'm focused on the task. It is very meditative to me.
Yeah, crocheting as a kind of meditation. In fact, I know I've seen a lot of people crocheting. I have friends who crochet, and it's been recommended to them as therapy. People who are anxious and so forth say, okay, here, try this crochet, because you have to stay fixed in one line after another. My gardener told me the other day, she said, weeding is one of my meditations. And I see her out there when she starts to weed, it's hard for her to stop because she's so absorbed in one thing. You don't have to think of anything else, just finding the weed, pulling it out. Anybody else experience with focus or desire to focus more? Or can you relate to the admonition that focus is nectar, distraction is torture? Have you ever felt tortured by your mind?
Indu says mandala art helps me focus.
Mandala art, is that art when you're painting or just looking?
It's an art where we paint. It's a very detailed oriented kind of art that we do. So
And
I can paste a link in the chat as well.
do you paint or do you just look? I mean, not
Paint.
just, I mean, paint, you paint.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
please.
it's I can send something in the chat as
Yes, please. We want to see that.
And we have Elikas, I think, said too many distractions can make it feel as if I'm twirling around and not able to grasp anything.
Yeah, that's a nice description of twirling, being pushed practically like by the wind, and it's reminiscent of what Krishna's discussion about being unfocused feels like you're being blown by the wind. Your mind just goes anywhere. He gives that metaphor also about a boat on water without a resting place. It gets blown by the wind. Go ahead, JM.
Vidya says, thank you, Vaisheshika sir, for this session. I have more of a question. With so many device distraction, especially for kids, do you have any suggestions to pull them and ourselves back? We try to have some game nights to connect without electronics, but those are few and far between.
Well, I think your instinct to do something else is a really good idea. And as far as personal experience goes, it's helpful to make your determination to be focused a clear goal. And it always helps me to write things down. I can say that we are surrounded by devices, and I am, and that when I write down my intention, for instance, for the month, let's say a 30-day goal for the 1 month, and say for this month, I will stay focused on my tasks. And then what I do, and I keep it in my book every day, and I use this hour to hour, this little notebook here I carry with me. And I'll write down what are the next three things that I'm going to do. And I'll write down the time that I'm starting, and then I'll say for the next whatever time period I'm going to do it for, I'll stay focused on it. And I do have a countdown timer that goes with that. I think I've showed it to you before, but let me see if I can grab it really quick. These two are my friends, this notebook and this countdown timer. So this countdown timer is made by Yoon Boet. I think it's somewhere in Europe. And then I just turn the dial, and then I have a magical period where, okay, right now it's on 20, say 20 minutes. Make a deal with my mind. My dear mind, for the next 20 minutes, and then I'll write down, see, these are three things I have that I wrote down that I have to do in the next 20 minutes. I have right here. And, one of them is tidy the room. Next is chant 4 rounds. And then the other one, what wasn't within 20 minutes, but was 1 hour of writing. So I have those things written down. So now my mind has somewhere to go. And if I need a time period specifically, then I use the countdown timer because this is really helpful in overcoming the overwhelming sense that there's too much to do, therefore I won't do anything. And if I say, well, all I can do is all I can do within 20 minutes. Or even if my mind's really in a press, then I put it down to 5. So can you do 5? You make a negotiation. My dear mind, could you do 5? Could we work on this little negotiation? And if the mind will give in and say 5, then I write down, here's what I'm going to do within 5 minutes. It's a great relief because then I have a clear idea of what I'm going to do within the next 5 minutes or 20 or an hour. And then it gives a way to start and move into it. Jam, Vicky has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Not sure if we have to move on. In keeping with the subject, I was also thinking about how a crane has a filter, and that helps with the focus because the crane doesn't go after every little thing that comes up, but keeps their mind focused on the goal. And that can be compared to instant gratification rather than the patience that you were referring to. And I also wanted to welcome back Flavia, who has joined our Monday evening sessions, as well as Trishna, who came to our in-person mini festival in downtown Palo Alto. And I wanted to welcome Van here for the first time. She came to our retreat this past weekend, and she's been really talking about this theme of focus through meditation. So, Van, if you have a moment, would love to hear from you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, Van, we can hear you. Good to see
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
I think the topic today is a good because I was like tapping out and I want to say distraction cause a mistake cause a regret cause a disappointment at oneself. And when there's a disappointment at oneself, there's nothing to flip. Yeah. And I something happened this morning. So I'm a little bit like upset and lost. But the section was helped me to like focus on what I can do. Help me like I wake up at really early and miss the fly and a lot of things happen. So I just thinking like, okay, focus on what I can do, and then I think I just joined a section to help me to be feeling calm, and hopefully I can get some tool that help me with my focus.
Such nice points, Van. Thank you very much. Uh, I loved what you said about being disappointed with oneself. That can spiral downwards too. And being able to stay on a track that we know we can handle, get some early wins so that we start feeling confident that, oh, I can do this. It tends to spiral upwards and we can build on it. And I really relate with the feeling one can get when something happens that seems like a setback or it's just a intractable situation, a hard conversation that one has to have. And it's like that can really throw us off also. And I liked how you said having a tool to get back into the focus of your life can make such a big difference. Thank you very much. Great to have you back here. Thank you.
Go ahead, Radha.
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to share with a conversation I had with my colleague yesterday. There's a lot of reorgs happening in our company, and I was just talking to her, and she was asking, which group you are part of it and what is happening. And when I told that, now this thing happened, now there's a new leadership is there. And I really liked actually what she responded to me. She said, I only care about my boss and one level up another boss. That's it. He said, anybody else, this is in our company, whatsoever they are doing it, it's good to know, but I really don't care because it's going to help me. My head get clogged when I know too many things. So I care about my boss and his boss, and whosoever is the CEO or the VP or whosoever is there, it doesn't bother me anymore. So I was just little taken aback, very simple way of living a life rather than getting too much worried or concerned about the macro things, which does not, we do not have any influence, rather than we get more worry. And then mind gets too much distracted, and it impacts our own behavior. Because since you are too much worried about that one, when you come home, you are not there because you are heavily influenced by such actions, and your interaction with your family members get impacted. So very simple thing, to do not get too bogged down about external influences. Stay within your area of influence, what you have shared earlier, and get your mind little rest. So
Yeah, thank you, Radhakripa. And it's something that Vicky brought up in alluded to is staying within your circle of influence. What things can I actually do something about, and which things are beyond that? And just commenting before we call in Shubhanga, that is that in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks an important question. I mean, they're all important, but there's a specifically poignant question that he asked to Krishna about how do you know when somebody's fixed in consciousness? How do you know how do we know we're fixed in consciousness according to the definition of Krishna? And one of the aspects Krishna calls to be a stita. That was it, Yasmin. You asked what the beep sound like, and I don't know if you heard that or not, but 6 little beeps. I'll play it back later. Uh, he calls it a stita di muni, and this is really important, a phraseology. I'm going to unpack it. Stita is cognate in English with the word stand. Stand comes from Sanskrit, and it comes from the word stita. Stita means that you have a platform to stand on, that you're stable. D, I already talked about, it means where you're placing your attention, what you're absorbed in. And muni means a thinker. So there are different kinds of thinkers. One's a regular Muni, and a Muni is somebody who's always trying to come up with new ideas in order to challenge other people. Whether they're solid or not, they want a new theory just so they can have a more unique way of thinking than other people. But Krishna talks about Astita Dina Muni as something that relates to what you just said, Radhakripa, is a person who has already vetted where they get their information from. What's
Mhm.
more, they know that I have to follow in this particular line to be successful in what I'm doing. And therefore, they don't listen to other stuff. They consider it noise. I'm focused here. So the Stita D Muni doesn't try to speculate and think of new things. It just sticks with what's most important and relevant to my success and stays in that lane.
mm,
Shubhanga, you want to go ahead?
Hi. Yes. Thank you very
Hi.
much for giving me the opportunity
Of
to
course.
ask I have a couple of questions to ask, and I was wondering what your thoughts are or advices on that. My first question is, I notice my issue that on a daily basis, I take 2 steps forward in the direction I want to, but because of life's anxiety or whatever the situations put me through, I go a million steps back. And this, in my opinion, I don't think this is the right way to make progress. And I've been trying to come up with ways to reduce going back a million steps, but I'm unable to do so because I get involved. Without being involved, I can't do my work. But being involved, it takes me a million steps back. So my first question is, what can I do to not go a million steps back every day? And my second question, if I may, is I'd like to use my mind as a tool, but I feel that I am a victim of my mind and I am being used as a tool by my mind. Right. So if my mind is really a tool, how do I come to a state wherein I actually use it as a tool? I don't know, because I'm constantly, as you said, I need to make a deal with my mind. I am tired of making deals. I'd like to get to a state wherein I'd like to use it as a tool. So is that possible at all? Or am I being too ambitious or ideal?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, the mind is naturally in the mode of goodness. It just gets contaminated by association. And then we get dragged down into various other ways of seeing the world, and we get pushed around by the mind. But Krishna gives every optimistic indication in the Bhagavad Gita that the mind can become one's friend and it can become a tool. What I recommend is what was prescribed by the avatar and great teacher Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Over 500 years ago, he made the Bhagavad Gita very practical for people in general. He was a monk, and he went village to village for many years, teaching a simple process for bringing the mind to the place of absorption where it could become purified. He said, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Through the process that he was teaching, you can purify the mind. And he gave this example of a mirror, as you know well, because you probably know Sanskrit. Darpana means a mirror, and Cheta means the mind. So he compared the mind metaphorically to the mirror. And Cheta Darpana Marjana, Marjana means to clean. So you can clean the mirror of the mind, and then it becomes highly effective. It gets clean, clear, beautiful he said, by the process of mantra meditation. And he recommended that because we can try many techniques. We can watch a million YouTube videos, and everybody has a different idea because they're not Stita Deer Moonies. They're just Moonies. But if you follow the simple process recommended as a prescription, especially for the modern age, of practicing mantra meditation, you can start with 1 minute a day and then try to move up to 2 minutes a day and then five. I'm writing a book about it right now. It's very absorbing because it reminds me again and again that trying to go out on our own and fix things with our mind is futile. There's too many things to fix. It's a hydra. As soon as you cut the head off of one problem, there's a million more. And that's maybe why you feel like you take one step forward and then there's a million steps back. It's not you, it's the nature of the world. And if you train your mind in mantra meditation, what you're doing is learning to rise above the perspective of the three modes of material nature, and especially above rajas, where we try to problem solve and then we find out we have more problems. And the problems we just solved a few years ago, they come back into our life again, sometimes with more of a vengeance. So we have to rise to a safe position above the turbulence of the mind. And that can be achieved by mantra. Man means mind, tra means to rise above or to deliver from trayate. So I recommend that you try it in the morning time, especially. It takes a while to get into the habit, but if you can clear a space in your home and then start by pronouncing the syllables of the mantra, and I can show you a couple of mantras. JM, why don't you show the mantra? Do Nitai Gauranga, and then we'll show the Ma mantra, which I'm sure Shubhanga knows all about. But it's just as a reminder, because I'm sure you know more about this than I do. But I'll just as a reminder, one mantra is Nitai Gauranga. It's spelled phonetically, but that mantra is a gateway mantra to the next mantra, which is this Ma mantra. It's mentioned in the Upanishads. The Ma mantra, which in its entirety has 3 words, and those are Hare Krishna Rama. And if you take some time to repeat this, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then practice bringing your mind back to the sound of the mantra and make a goal for yourself of doing this, say, like for the next week. Say, I'll do at least 3 of these mantras every day for the next 7 days. And try sitting in a peaceful place, turn off anything with an on-off switch, and make sure you're not distracted so you can do your 3 mantras. And then see what you feel like from the practice of mantra meditation. And if you start from that as a base, you start getting into this introspection and then taking help from the mantra by listening to it, you'll notice that it's a lot easier to not lose the progress that you've made, 1 step forward, a million steps back. or that your mind feels like it's not a tool. Has to be cleaned. Like any tool, if it's gummed up, it doesn't work properly. So the mind gets gummed up. So that's my prescription. It's not my prescription, it's the prescription given hundreds of years ago and still recommended in all the wisdom literatures. Just try that. Take take three of those and call me in the morning.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Narashinga Prabhu.
Thank you very much for your advice. If I may, I have a follow-up question on one of the topics you mentioned.
Sure.
You did mention that it is about going above the rajas. I have realized one thing that tamas doesn't work well with life. I think, in my opinion, I have methods to go over tamas. I think I'm probably stuck with rajas, as you said, in the problem-solving realm. And what do you mean when I need to go above rajas? I mean, does that mean I need to go to a sattvic state? And what does that mean? Do I stop solving problems? And how is that different from tamas then?
No, you could still solve problems, and we never completely give up rajas or tamas because they can be useful. But when we're very purposeful and we use tamas, for instance, it's important to get sleep, and you can't sleep without tamas. So
Oh,
it's not like, okay, I don't sleep anymore. And when you're in sattva gun, primarily, the modes are always mixed together, but you want proportionality. And you want to be more in sattva than you are in rajas. Otherwise, rajas is just frustrating. No matter what you solve, there's more to solve. You need the preponderance of sattva in your life so that you're not just problem solving for the sake of problem solving and then you start over and do it again. So you judiciously utilize the modes because at night, tamas comes naturally. It's part of the universe. The sun goes down. You go like, okay, I think I'll just close my eyes, turn my brain off for a little while. That's okay when it's purposeful. And then rajas, you want to problem solve? Yes, get into that, but don't get carried away by it. And sattva is good. You don't want to get carried away by that either because sattva is not the ultimate. We use sattva as a platform to rise above all the three modes. That's the idea behind the ultimate meditation. And that's what the chanting will help you to do. If you can touch that realm where you feel sattva and maybe just for 1 second feel like, oh, I have the perspective that I'm not my I'm not just my physical body or my mental body. I can objectify it and notice that I'm in an existential situation in this body right now, in this world that's moving around. 1 second of that feeling will give you the wherewithal to not be snippy with your family, to work well with colleagues, to not be overwhelmed when somebody throws another report on your desk and says, hey, fix this by the end of the day, and you already had five other ones that you were working on, because you've touched that realm and now you have a perspective. And that all comes from focus. And focus on what? On a soccer ball? Not exactly. If you focus on the what we call the OUM, the ultimate, no, UOM, the ultimate object of meditation, find that, practice it, and then you'll get to where you want to go. That's the promise of these ancient literatures. And it's very true, actually. Okay,
thank you very
so
much for
I
your
want to
advice.
go back. Thank you so much. Really important questions and well posed. If I can make my thing do this for Yasmin, just six, that's it. And it's very gentle. And by the way, just since we're talking about technology, the best system for waking up in the morning is the alarm clock I have. It doesn't make a sound, it makes light. It's an orb. I can't bring it over here because it's plugged in on the other side of my room, but it's an orb designed by Philips. You can find them online, but it's fantastic because having the light come into your room is a much better way to wake up than having a sound that kind of jerks you out of your deep sleep, hopefully. Uh, it gently, it's like a sun rising. It starts with a yellow color and it gets brighter and brighter until amazingly you can't sleep. And I have no anxiety about waking up to that because it's so gentle and it definitely wakes me up in the morning. Some of these tools can be really helpful for staying regulated. So I'm just mentioning them. JM, let's show a few more slides. Patience, practice patience. We have this person on the line because if you've ever run a race like this, there's a way in which you have to wait for the sound of the pistol, the starter pistol. And there's a lot of times people make a false start, they jump off the line. You have to wait. And so there's a lot of things that have to do, almost everything has to do with timing in this world. And you can't get overly anxious. But what can you do? That's in the next slide. Practice preparation. When you get anxious and impatient, it means you're not working in the mode of preparation. Preparation's so powerful. Just think, what can I get myself prepared for? Even if it didn't come to my door yet, it didn't come into my life. I'm waiting for it, and now I start getting, when's it coming? When's it coming? Don't worry about it. Just prepare yourself for it because one of my favorite quotes, it's right up there in the top 10. Great discoveries come only under the prepared mind. Under the prepared mind. We can't even see it when it comes unless we're prepared. So find out what are the fundamentals. A person who used to run cross country, that's another kind of running, was a coach. He said he took the the whole team in and said, okay, three kinds of ice cream. No, there's named about six kinds of ice cream. It was like, which one's the best? And then vanilla was on the list, and then there was all these exotic flavors. Said, which one? And everyone had their opinion. He said, vanilla. Vanilla is the best. What does that mean? It's like vanilla means do that basic practice that you know you have to do to get where you want to go. There's always a vanilla that here's the one little thing that nobody does because everyone wants to do something fancier and have a different flavor. Just stick with vanilla. And if you're wondering, like, what should I do now to prepare? Go back to vanilla. What's the simplest thing that everybody has to do? Like in learning how to play a percussion instrument, it can be arduous practice because there are a few rudimentary beats that you have to learn and you have to practice them for years until you get really good at them. Then you can do something else. So stay in preparation mode. Practice it. Practice patience. How do you practice patience? Practice preparation. And the next one also connects because it's practicing prioritization. And sorry for that long word. I mean, it's a simple word, but it's still too complicated. Making priorities is, for humans, it's really everything because human life means we have the ability to prioritize. Animals do it to a slight degree. You can't argue that they don't prioritize certain things. It's kind of natural for them, but a lot of it has to do with natural impulses that come out. They don't have a lot of sense of causality. The more evolved a species are, the more they have a sense of causality. Human beings are at the pinnacle. That's our superpower. We can understand causality. So figure it out. That's your job as a human. You're supposed to figure out, first of all, you can't have everything. Where would you put it? That was an old joke from Stephen Wright. I love that one. Can't have everything. Where would you put it? That he said, don't major in minor things. That's Jim Rohn. And then finally, the main thing is keep the main thing the main thing. So you have to know what your main thing is. Don't guess at it. Don't just do whatever comes up or whatever people tell you to, unless you decide what your priorities are in your life. Everybody else is going to tell you what to do, including your mind. Like Narsingh Prabhu was saying, it's your mind just tells you what to do. You want to use it as a tool. You use your own discretion to decide what is most important for me in life, and then make a list. What are the top five? What are the top 10? What are the top three? And when trouble comes up in your life or there are distractions, keep coming back to your top choices in what you're supposed to be doing. And you'll feel that you're framing your life. In fact, one of my favorite books by Guy Kawasaki, he was one of the founders of Apple. and he wrote a book many years ago called Art of the Start. I read and marked up that book many times, Art of the Start. And one of my favorite phrases he gave was frame or be framed. If you don't frame what your priorities are and what you want your life to be like, write your own constitution, hang it on the wall and say, this is what I live for, then everyone else is going to tell you what to do. And you're going to have to do it because you didn't set your own priorities. So be a smart human and make your own priorities. The next one is to practice introspection. Here's the musk deer. I wrote about this in the introduction to my book, 4 Questions. The musk deer, it's the male deer that has the musk glands. And it's a allegory to us in this world looking for something nice. Now, the musk deer smells the scent of musk, but doesn't know that it's coming from its own navel. And therefore, he goes to mountains, he goes to valleys, he searches for it in caves. Like, where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? What the Bhagavad Gita says, what the Yoga Sutras say, and what's intuitive to us is that happiness comes from within ourselves. And it doesn't matter what you achieve in this world. If it's touched by rajas, tamas, or even sattva, you're not going to like it, guaranteed. At some point, you're going to reject it because it's not going to satisfy. But what will satisfy? Intro, look inside, spect, look inside and discover who you are and what's most important. And finally, a lesson from another bird, and that's detachment. One of my favorite stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam is of the Karari hawk. You see how there's a little mouse there? Sorry, little mouse. A little mouse there, and he's flying up in the sky. Those 2 other Karari hawks attack him, and they say, give up the mouse or die. So what does our hero, the Karari hawk carrying the mouse, do? Drops the mouse. And so you keep this mantra going. When we become overwhelmed by an intractable situation, which is so oppressive, we have to learn detachment. Just let it go. It's like in writing. One of the most common pieces of advice that you get from writers, for instance, in the book on Writing Well by William Zinsser, one of the best books ever written on writing, he talks about how writing means revision. You write and you think, oh, that's brilliant. I'm brilliant. This is great. I mean, you might think like that at some point. Uh, uh, and then you have to go back and edit it out. And so many times the editor says, get rid of this. I mean, what are you talking about? I wrote that. No, cut it. There's so many things we can cut from our lives that we don't really need. And so when we talked about this at one of the corporations, that name will go unmentioned right now, in person when we were live, and we gave the presentation of Drop the Mouse. I remember I came back the next month, and many of the people who had attended, when I walked in the room, they all went, drop the mouse. So it's a mantra you could take with you. When things are, there you go. It can be this, or it can be any intractable situation. Of course, it doesn't mean to be irresponsible and just walk away, but let go of the anxiety. After all, what can you do? If you're being challenged and your life is in the balance or your peace of mind is in the balance, there's certain things you might notice. Just let it go and start over. Just be without it. You don't have to hold on to every little thing. And if you learn how to let go of the many anxieties that hold on, you'll be much better at dealing with them from an objective point of view. And now we have 1 more minute for any last quick reflections. If you want to type it in, say, what one thing are you taking away? Or you want to speak out in 1 sentence with no semicolons, please go ahead.
There is one question. How do I find my UOM, ultimate object of meditation?
Yastita Dear Muni. It's mentioned there, but in the ancient wisdom literatures, which are self-revealing knowledge, is give light of knowledge. And if you can vet that authority for yourself and say, okay, they're recommending to meditate on this particular subject or object, then just take that. So, as I mentioned before, there's a prescription in the ancient Upanishads that say, meditate on this mantra. It's called the Maha Mantra. You can take it and try it, test it out, and say, okay, I'll practice this. Great sages have done it for millennia, and it's recommended in one of the most authoritative spiritual books called the Upanishads. So I'll take it, I'll try it, and see what happens. That's a good way to choose.
And then Elika says, I appreciated this moment. I am being able to slow and focus even for as fleeting as it has been.
Yes, that's right. And staying in that mode and observing how we're always in the present moment. When we project outwardly and try to predict the future, we worry. When we go back and try to look at the past, there's nothing we can do about it. And it just causes us distraction. So stay in the moment, be mindful, follow the crane, be patient, be focused. And by taking time to practice every day, even if it's for 1 minute, it's so advantageous for our lives to be able to connect to the ultimate object of meditation, or even just practice mindfulness for a moment. You'll notice that you have more capability in your life. People even notice. They say, what happened to you? What are you on? What are you taking? It's just I'm meditating on the ultimate object of meditation. JM, thank you very much for organizing our session today. We never take it for granted because who knows, anything can happen to anyone or the world or the electricity or whatever. We're just really fortunate to be able to keep this conversation going. And it reminds me of these yogis who live in the Himalayas in caves, and they come out from time to time. They have so much gratitude in their heart from introspection. They like to express it through a phrase, Hari Bol. It means just, it's a joyful phrase, expression of like, wow, there's so much inside. I want to broadcast it to the world. So they say Hari Bol and they put their hands high in the air to kind of release, like the heart has its own electromagnetic force. Did you know that? There's more neurons in the heart area, as many as in the brain. Its heartfulness is as important as mindfulness. So when you put your hands in the air like this, it opens your heart and lets those impulses fly out into the world. And if you say the phrase Hari Bol, then it amplifies it. It goes around the world 7 times. That's why the yogis do it. So if you want to try it and make the world a better place, let's do it from here. We'll do Hari Bol with our hands up and send it this gratitude all around the planet. 1, 2, 3. Hari Bol.
Haribol.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.